It is now time to explain to people just what's wrong with me.
If there's one thing your podcast name doesn't need, it's the word podcast. Think about the music you listen to. With the exception of color themes, the white album, the blue album, the black album, and the gray album, bands don't need to include the word album in their record titles. The same is true for podcasts. Podcasts have become mainstream enough that listeners don't need to have the format called out. In fact, including the word podcast can make it harder for listeners to decipher if it's something they would be interested in, as Alex Busquet, product marketing lead at Spotify, points out. For listeners, it ends up creating more noise and makes evaluation harder when browsing new shows. Say I'm faced with several shows called The Garden Podcast. How can I tell which one is more for my taste? Now that you know an old practice to steer away from, focus on how to come up with dynamite podcast name ideas that will stand the test of time. Each boils down to one common premise: the best podcast names are unique. Make it memorable. With literally millions of podcasts out in the world, there are bound to be some that sound alike and some that might get overlooked because they sound too generic or vague. Pick a title that won't go unnoticed. When faced with many similar sounding shows, the more informative and unique names stand out and end up driving more listens. Save the 7 characters in podcast to make your show name more unique, or to keep your show name short and simple, says Busquet. For example, How to Save a Planet, the podcast by Gimlet, sounds a lot more compelling than the Sustainability Podcast. The first one communicates a clear mission and has a galvanizing effect. The second one lacks the same focus and spirit. Appeal to your audience. Place yourself in the minds of your ideal audience and ask yourself what would intrigue them. To do that, you need to be familiar and in tune with that community. Your show name should communicate what makes your show special so that users stumbling on your show will instantly think, "This is my jam," says Busquet. One way to do this is to start with your topic. If your topic is about 70s disco culture in New York City, your podcast could be called Studio 54 Stories. If your audience is natural wine lovers, Natty, Naked Wine, 00, and Glow Glow are all terms associated with that wine category that natural wine fans would recognize. Think about how you can incorporate those into a title. A more direct route is to make the title audience-based. For example, Gimlet's Motherhood Sessions is a podcast that interviews mothers about motherhood. The title lets you know exactly who the podcast is speaking to. Busquet says, more than ever, a show can carve out its niche and hope to attract a sizable and devoted listenership. What defines your niche? That could be the seed for a show name. For example, The Kennedys, by Parcast succinctly presents its niche in the title. It's not just about politics, history, or crime but a combination of all three, with the American political dynasty at the center. Make it easy to find. You need a podcast name that's unique and memorable enough to be easily searchable. When one listener tells a friend to check out your podcast, your dream scenario, that friend should be able to find it instantly. For example, the Spotify Studios podcast, Bandsplain, will be the top result for that search term and among the top results for broader keywords like band or bands. Also, keep in mind that you should resist the temptation to add special characters or creative misspellings to make your title distinct unless absolutely necessary. That will make your show harder to search for. Think about your overall brand. Consider the big picture when deciding on a name for your show. The name of your podcast will signal what your show is about. It will represent you as a creator to your listeners and to potential creative or business partners. Make sure it will age well. If you plan to produce your podcast long-term, you might not want to zero in on a particular element of a topic but rather take a broader approach. For example, if your podcast is about reality TV, your name should focus on that as a genre instead of the particular show you're discussing in your first season. But, if your entire podcast is about one show, putting that in the title makes sense. No matter what your podcast is about, think about whether your podcast name will make sense 10 years from now. Your specific word choice conveys a lot about your brand. Even if 2 podcasts have the same name in the title, they could be about 2 completely different topics for totally different audiences. For example, a podcast called Fruits of the World, that explores indigenous fruits from different countries and regions would be a far cry from the Spotify Studios podcast, Forbidden Fruits, that covers taboo content, with no-holds-barred cultural commentary. Another branding consideration is how the title of your show will look in a visual context. Visualize the title in marketing materials and how it will look in print, especially your cover art. Your cover art acts as your podcast's logo. It is the main visual asset that listeners will associate with your show. Make some mock-ups with your different title contenders. If you're deciding between multiple options, Finding the best fit for your cover art may be the deciding factor. Extend that mindset to scaling your brand. Once you get your podcast off the ground, you may want to create podcast merch. How will your show name look on a coffee mug, t-shirt, koozie, or hat? Do your research. It's likely that your first idea, or first several ideas, for a podcast name has already been taken. This is when you'll need to get creative and carve out enough time to plan for the best alternatives. As much as you might love an idea for a name that someone already has, challenge yourself to devise something even better. Finding a unique and memorable show name can be challenging, so take your time and don't get stuck on the first idea, says Busquet. So, before you get too attached, first make a list of potential titles. Then, search for them on Google and within podcast listening platforms to make sure they are original and distinct from other existing shows. If you keep finding that someone else thought of your idea first, explore different options and variations around a concept. Can you find something clever, a different approach or angle, or something that's not obvious about your topic? Use that to cultivate a new name and to also set it apart from other similar podcasts. This is an important part of the overall planning process for your show, not just your name. You might find a podcast that is exactly about your concept, which could prompt you to brainstorm a fresh approach to further differentiate your show. For example, let's say you want to start a true crime podcast about serial killers, but Parcast's Serial Killers is already an established podcast. In light of this revelation, you might pivot to a unique spin on that angle and title, Uncaught Serial Killers. Adds, over the years, appending podcast to our show name has been a convenient fix when racking our brains to name our latest creation. We've all been there. We feel inspired to create a show, and when asked to come up with a name for our show, we turn to the uninspired, the X podcast. Once published, our show ends up in an ocean of shows with similar sounding names, making it hard for anyone to find or discover. After putting in so much time, effort, and thought into planning your actual show, the idea of spending more on coming up with a name can feel exhausting. But since it symbolizes your podcast and everything it embodies, you'll be glad you picked the right one. This was Jimmy James, copy and pasting from Anchor blog and support, on how to start a podcast and build a podcast in a more professional manner. Anyway, I hope this helps, and like usual, take care of yourself and one another.
Nice opinion. What's the issue? I am inside your phone.
Stay tuned for the bonus episode. Bonus coming up right at you. The boner episode bonus episode bonus.
Get your hands up! Get your hands up! On the ground! Get on the ground!
There's one in the corner.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back!
Put your hands behind your back, do it now. Don't you fucking move. You hear me, boys?
Yep. Got the computer. Give me the address.
David, we got one in custody.
Julie, copy one in custody.
What's your name?
Thanks, Lauren. You have one in custody.
Frank, Lincoln 2, address is 1221 West Mineral Avenue. Command is at 1241 West Mineral Avenue.
So what did you do when you heard the intruder?
I ran upstairs. I had to run. And I had to do what that little girl, what's that little girl, in the Holocaust? She had Anne Hathaway, Frank and Beverly. Anne Frank, that's a hiding bitch, ain't it?
YouTube and US too. What's up? You just stepped into another Jimmy James RAPLIT, so you might as well just sit. I'll be semi-quick, like a dude in a bedroom, with his first ever real chick, hopefully not holding his dick. Sorry, this shit's already getting thick. I haven't done one of these in a while, so let's time myself. So stroke at the start of midnight. Yes people, I have jokes in jokes. I never said I was the best at this. I just know I was the first one to ever make this shit. You can go check out my YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. Honestly, I don't give a shit. To get off subject, don't you hate those pricks who ask you to like their shit before you haven't even had a chance to see it? So they want you to like and subscribe, hit the bell, because all is well, you'll be coming back to their channel. Isn't that pretty much a pitch, or a sale? They want you to like their shit before you have seen it. I'm just trying to remember the last time I bought a movie ticket, and said to myself I'm going to see this, without even catching the trailer. I'm telling you, YouTube is the world's leading expert on algorithm subscription power. Holding a towering money stack above our head, they're straight trying to get in your bread, reach deep down in your pocket, make sure you sign up for that YouTube rocket. And what I mean by this is, you got the premium, you got the YouTube TV, if you can see where I'm going. Basically, they're strapping on money bomb to your ass and saying thank you. As they light the wick, turn around and smile about it. Like that shit, there goes your life's check. Do the math, kids. $17.95 a month for the family plan comes out to $215.04 yearly. Feed the homeless first, before you have to skip your ads in the YouTube channel. You could feed a horde of wild animals. $215 a year. Most poor people who work 12 hours a day don't see that until the end of the month. But I'm sorry to get off the topic and throw these facts, truths, and straight up insanely statistics inside your headspace. Now you might have an idea of how much I make, staring at my computer screen at a current balance of $52.59 total earned all time. I couldn't even afford YouTube. For under half the time, podcasting is not a money maker. It is a vent stress-free outlet, started by Anchor.fm and that whole outfit. YouTube is just another cog in the wheel of this little pale blue pearl in the vacuum of space, making it just a harder place to live these days. So once again, sorry to drop some truth bombs, but I never said this shit would be pretty. If you go back and listen to some of my other shit, I speak about the world and how we're never going to last, not even a little bit. So kids, you might as well start playing with sticks. You don't need 5 tablets in each room. Maybe pick up a broom, sweep up the place you live on, because this is all we have left. So maybe next time you walk by somebody who asked you for $1 or $2, maybe think to yourself, how much did I spend on YouTube last month? Just saying, what comes around goes around. Whatever saying suits you best, but I guarantee life will put your ass to the test. So please be kind and rewind. This is just me getting out another whining moment. So live for now, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. But I bet you, come that first of the month, you'll be paying that phone bill. That's way too much, and you most definitely don't need. By the way, if your kid doesn't know what to do when the lights go out, tell them to go clean the house out. Give you hard-working parents a break, cause kids today don't appreciate their place, not one fucking thing. These kids need to get off their video games and maybe think about joining something good for the human race. Okay, I'm kind of running a little late. Sorry for the sad rap. Lit. All honesty, not really too much of a rap or a joke, but I think you get the picture. Before I go, just remember, it's all on our shoulders by Jimmy James.
We'll be right back. Alright, you just chilled into you just tuned into Jimmy James. Yeah, man, I'm not fucked up or anything. I'm just trying to figure out how life goes. Did you ever meet one of those people who are so fucked up in life that they are just... What? How did you get here? Who dropped you off? Did the aliens know that we were more civilized than this? Then you turn around and you go, they had a point. Now, there's people out there that are just fucking dumb. Now, before I get on to this episode, this is you're dumb, deal with it. But pretty much you're dumb. And I'm calling not you personally, if you're listening, you dumb. I'm calling people in general fucking stupid. And I mean this on the most sincere go fuck yourself type of level. Let me start it out like this, alright? People are dumb in the fact that I wanted to add this in too, but people are dumb like, okay, for example, you're talking to somebody, you might have more experience into this subject, whatever it is. I'm not gonna sit there and make up subject. Whatever. Well, fuck it. I'll do it because I'm just a nut. Let's say you're a mechanic. Now, I am not a mechanic. I know very little. I probably know more than the average guy would know about cars. Okay? But I wouldn't sit there and say to another guy who's a mechanic and say, well, no, this is the way it should be. And then, like, you just come off like a fucking jackass. Shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? It's one of those type of deals. Alright. So that's the kind of dumb I'm talking about. You know, I actually talked to somebody like that today. It had nothing to do. It was nothing important or anything. And I'm just like, dude, really? For example, just to give you a little side note, you guys know I don't talk about like Xbox and shit like that too much, right? Okay, for an example, I got a new Xbox One S. That's not what I'm about to be talking about though. This guy's like, oh, well, you're such and such high level, you should know about this, and I'm like, dude, the level has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. And it's like, this wasn't the first time he said something, and then there was a second time and a third time, and I got to the point where I'm just like, dude, what the fuck? And, you know, here he is, he's smoking weed. Now, I have nothing against people who smoke weed. I fucking love it. I just don't smoke it anymore because I realize I'm fucking stupid when I smoke weed. I mean, weed is the type of drug if the world didn't need you on, like, alert, you know, 24/7, like, what's that? Like a dog, like, what's going on? What's this? What's that? You know, like, one of those, then I actually might, take it, so, I don't know. Or, take it? Your Honor, he took the marijuana and here's something sentence you'll never hear. He took the marijuana and then began to shoot up the whole school. We believe that it was the marijuana's doing. Your Honor, he got pulled over for smoking marijuana. We believe he hit these 16 cars because he was so fucked up on marijuana. This substance is powerful, and it should be pulled off the street, really fast. And the funny part is, look at all these years later, we have it on the street legal. I mean, legal. Just 30 years ago, we were in court fighting about fucking marijuana, sitting there saying, oh, it should be street legal versus da-da-da-da, and then the people that actually had some sort of brains under the people who have the money said, yo, let's make this shit legal. Do you know how much bank we can make off of this? And the dude was he just heard money, how much money he can hear. He's like, well, let's make it legal. I'll pound my hammer, you know, the one I get to play with in the morning and stuff, and I'll pound it, and I'll say that's done, and that's it. Because that's who runs the country, a bunch of fucking retards. Now, I dare anybody to come back to me on this show and say, leave a message and say, and I will fucking play it for everybody to hear. So you get the goofing around fucking Jimmy James, but then you get the serious fucking part of me. Come back to me and tell me that we don't have a bunch of fucking retard. I almost wasn't going to say this. We have a bunch of retard monkeys running the fucking system. And I don't mean that in some colorful way or race way. We are fucking stupid. And we are doomed. I was thinking about changing my title to, you know, Jimmy James A to Z, Life and Beyond and all that. But instead of having Life and Beyond, we are doomed. Think about it, guys. The polar ice caps are melting, okay? It's a fact. It's not something that, it's like, oh, this is happening. And I'm not into that type of shit. If it happens, it happens. Oh well. I like George Carlin said, the earth's just gonna shake us off. And that's what's exactly gonna happen. So, alright, I'm 7 minutes plus into this part. I am gonna go make my coffee, and I'm gonna let you hear the George Carlin part of what I was just talking about. You guys heard it before, but, I'm a nice guy like that, and I'm gonna play it again. By the way, today is, right now, it is, it is Monday, I kept walking down the steps, March 30th, Wednesday. I was supposed to put a podcast out on, no, actually, today's the day. I'm back to schedule, baby. My mother is in the hospital. I'm going to give a quick shout out to her. She had a, I don't know how bad, a fractured or her arm. She fell off the bed and fractured her arm. And she also had an infection in her leg. She was hobbling around for like ever. But she would go to the store. She never really complained about it. We didn't think nothing of it. Then she fell, and then it got worse. And then within the next day, we got her to the hospital. So, I always say that there's other problems in the world, always. There's bigger, other problems, there's bigger problems in the world. She's in a soft bed, she's taken care of, okay? It's not that big of a deal. There's kids that gotta carry buckets on their head, over there in Guam, in fucking Iceland, in Florida, to get to the house, And I'm not making fun of that, so I'm, my mom does listen to my podcast. I don't know if it's every time, but if she does get a chance, because she does have my old phone, which works fine. It's just on my Wi-Fi. And she has her other phone, so if she hears this, I wish you a speedy recovery, and your iPad, your tablet's waiting for your Candy Crush to be playing that soon. Alright, take care of yourselves and one another, and get better, Mom. Get better. I have nothing left to bitch about. Alright, coming up, it's going to be a little bit of George Carlin, which I'm going to do for you right now. And Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year. Jesus Christ, guys. Did you guys all look down at your phone? Alright, peace out.